Say hi.
Hi.
I can guarantee you that they're all over 15. What grade are we in, guys?
Seniors.
We're seniors. So seniors can't be 15 years old, so they're all over 15 years old. Here is my nice presentation aid. She's here, and she's clear. Miss Tori, will you please record? Okay. Let's get this ball rolling. So, since the Green Revolution of the 1950s, humans have been very fascinated with editing DNA. Now, in the 1950s, we did this with food by making it have higher yields, but nowadays we're switching towards doing it with humans. So, gene editing is a new method of medicine that genetically edits humans' DNA through very specific processes, and the one that we're going to talk about today is going to be the CRISPR-Cas9 method. And it has seen success in numerous cases, and even though they have seen much success, it still comes with much controversy as well. Now, this is applicable to us because we're getting older, we're going to have to start taking initiative with our own health, and even if we start getting older and having kids, we're going to have to worry about their health as well. So with this new medical practice, we're going to have to know a little bit about it to decide if we want to use it in the future. So, before we talk about the technicalities involved with this method, we have to talk about what it is. So the main method of gene editing is going to be the CRISPR-Cas9 method. Now, according to an article by an alumni from Cambridge University, it describes that the process of gene editing as like scissors cutting a piece of fabric and then sewing it back together. So basically, an enzyme, or the Cas9, is going to cut the DNA in us or in food, and an RNA strand is going to direct it where in the genome to cut it. So that's the whole process of taking the DNA, cutting it out, and then adding in what you want or what favorable desire you have. So by using this, scientists can edit cells, primarily stem and T cells for us, and potentially block viruses like HIV from destroying human immune systems. And this has seen many examples of success. For example, a Harvard case study discusses Timothy Ray Brown, or the Berlin patient. Now, this man had HIV, but he had gotten a bone marrow transplant from an individual who was immune to the disorder, or to the virus. And after this transplant, he actually was cured of the HIV virus, and he has never contracted it since. So when researchers are looking at case studies such as this, it poses very favorable results and gives us great hope for the future. Now, according to Melinda Moyer, who is a woman with a master's degree in science, health, and environmental reporting from NYU, recounts about a woman named Alexis Sturgeon. Now, she didn't particularly have the gene edit herself, but she did it for her children. So she was born with a genetic disorder, or she carried the gene for a genetic disorder that built up ammonia in the body because it made it so that you couldn't absorb nitrogen. And so she wanted to have children, but unfortunately, because she carried this gene, she didn't want her children to be afflicted with this terrible disorder. And so what researchers did and the doctors did for her was they went into the embryos and saw which embryos had the gene and which ones didn't. So basically they edited her children's genes to make sure that they didn't have that one, and they would be able to be very healthy. So it actually was very successful, and she was able to have a very healthy baby girl without this genetic disorder. Now, even though there are many success stories, there's still much controversy surrounding this. For example, many people say that this is playing God. Now, that is because we're manipulating the very being of us. We're manipulating our own DNA. Now, when it comes to doing it in a health stance, we're taking out perhaps the HIV virus. This isn't as bad because it means that we can take out something that could potentially hurt us as individuals. However, as this develops, you could potentially pick out your own child's hair and eye color. And so when you're thinking about changing the very being of your child or yourself, that's where the issues come, and people say that we're playing God. Now, on more of a research stance, the issue with gene editing is that we don't really know the long-term effects. We've been doing it with food for a very long time, but we've only been doing it on a human stance for a very short amount of time. So no distinct and actual credible research has been done for these long-term effects. And that's why in a Harvard analysis, they noted that it sounded very nice, but we didn't have the long-term effects, and this was an issue when we're talking about putting into commercial use. And additionally, the National Human Genome Research Institute also points out the fact that since we're changing our own DNA, this is not only going to affect us, but it's going to affect the generations coming forward. So it's not only going to affect us, but it's going to affect our children and potentially our children's children. And that's why it's still being seen as very controversial and not being put into commercial use yet. However, it is still very popular and a very viable form of medical aid. Now, overall, gene editing is a very futuristic means of not only curing, but also preventing the contraction of deadly diseases in the present gene pool, and is also growing in popularity, even though criticism is also growing in popularity as well. While examples such as the Berlin patient and Lexus Sturgeon certainly give researchers much of hope, the absence of these long-term results severely limits the ability of doctors to put this into commercial use and let average people like us actually use it ourselves. However, for a generation obsessed with video games that allow you to customize your own characters, gene editing has given us a viable way to edit individuals who are much more fragile than that video game character ourselves. And that's it.